Hey guys, welcome to the Source Gaming Discussion. I am your host, Epicmartin7, and today I am joined by special guest SeaFoamGaming.
Hello, it's me, SeaFoamGaming, creator of Eternal Memories.
And today we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch Virtual Console and what we want to see from it. So, just as we were starting to record this discussion, ironically, Nintendo came out with details about their online service. And one of the details that came out from it was that they are dumping the Virtual Console subscription service. So, for those who weren't aware, Nintendo was originally planning on having, essentially, you could get access to a certain amount of NES and SNES titles for a month, and you could play online with them. Now they're saying, according to Kotaku, that you're going to be able to purchase the amount that are available on the Nintendo Switch eShop. So they're basically just making it limitless in a sense. So SeaFoamGaming, what is your thought on this news?
Well, at first I was very anxious to hear it because from what I gathered, they delayed the entire Virtual Console system to 2018 because most people, from my circles at least, thought the service would launch with the online service in the fall, which would make sense. It would give them time to work on the emulator and stuff. But until 2018, it just seems weird. And I think the reason it's delayed is because, as you mentioned, they're changing from a rotating system to a keep system like PlayStation Plus. And I think that's better for Nintendo and gamers in the long run because it's a bargain, especially if the selection grows as the months and years go by.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think, as we all know, when the Switch launched on March 3rd, it was more of a soft launch than anything else. I mean, if you go into the UI, it's all just basic. It's a very fast UI, but there's bare bones, software on it. And the thing is, they promised all these online features to appear on the holidays, but delaying it till 2018 does make me think that they're working on polishing it more. And of course, this does include the Virtual Console. And to me, it just seems like Nintendo wants to make sure everything is fine, fine-tuned and everything. This could definitely help improve the quality of the emulation. We've already seen it partially with the NES Classic Edition, where they improved the NES emulation compared to the Wii U Virtual Console. So I could definitely see them, getting everything prepared, adding more games to the Virtual Console library, and just beefing it up to make sure it's a juggernaut at launch, similar to the Wii's Virtual Console, in my opinion, hopefully.
Speaking of the Wii's Virtual Console, that was on launch day and it had lots of good games, but the thing that nowadays makes the Wii Virtual Console not desirable for people who want Wii U and 3DS stuff is the fact that there was no bonus features. It just suspends when you exit the home menu. And the 3DS introduced save states in the form of restore points, and the Wii U introduced button combinations. So what do you think the Switch Virtual Console will introduce? If NERD is, because they are rumored to be working on it, NERD includes some screen options for the Famicom Mini and the NES Classic. I own the Famicom Mini, but both are the same performance-wise. So do you think they'll include screen options as a bonus and keep the save states? Or do you think they'll ditch button configs and use the exact same stuff from the NES Classic?
Honestly, I think what they might do is include some of the stuff from the NES Classic and most of the stuff from the Wii U Virtual Console. So I think what they're going to do at this point is just improve upon it. To me, though, I think the online features are more going to be the next quote-unquote save states or the additional feature. To me, I think that's really going to be the kicker home to entice people to upgrade. Nintendo has only said that NES and SNES games are going to be supported online, but to me, it just seems like a wasted opportunity not to make it useful in GameCube titles or N64 titles or any other Virtual Console system that's, added. To me, I think that's going to be that feature that grabs everyone and says, oh my gosh, I can play, ice hockey from the NES online, or Super Mario Kart online, or heck, even though this is kind of getting into some territory here, Super Smash Bros. Melee online, but I'm not trying to, get everyone's hopes up. I don't know any insider info. Please don't sue Nintendo. I don't know anything. But yeah, that's just how I feel.
Speaking of the online, now that you mention it, the NES and SNES online games, I think what made people think that the Eurogamer rumor with GameCube games had weight to it, because people thought the NES and SNES games would be like their own separate platform. And that would make sense, because if they add Game Boy Advance games like Mother 3, which people are thinking is going to be announced at E3, well, how on earth can you do online multiplayer on a Game Boy Advance game because of how complicated it is to emulate multiplayer just locally? Like, it took ages for the 3DS to do it with Pokemon, and they couldn't get online on the thing.
I mean, to me, Nintendo obviously has access to all of, the source code material of every single one of their games. They have documentation on their hardware. If it's anyone that's going to be able to get it working, I think it's Nintendo. They've as much as people say there's limitations to what they can do, they, at the end of the day, have the documentation to do all that. If a modder can do it, Nintendo can take that concept a bit better. I released an article, I would say a year ago, saying that the GameCube had the technical ability to play GameCube games, and modders prove this. You can technically stick a GameCube ISO into the Wii U and play it, but Nintendo could technically take advantage of that and make it better. They have access to everything, and to me, it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to do that. We've already seen emulators, like some emulators. I think VBA maybe was one of them. Like, you could play GBA games online with other people, or you could hook up 2 different computers. I don't know, I have to go look back on that, but
I do remember that there was a Four Swords, someone got Four Swords working online, and that's a Game Boy Advance game that only works in multiplayer.
Right, so it's that technical know-how a lot of people have, and to me, it just proves that, okay, if you modders can do this, which, is admittedly really, really cool that people do this every day, but if you can do this, Nintendo can take your concept and make it better. I'm not dissing modders at all. They do a good job a lot of the time, but I do think that, it proves that Nintendo has the ability to do a lot of the stuff, in my opinion.
True, but there is one system. It's not really a system, it's an add-on. No, 2 systems that Nintendo have neglected. The Satellaview and the Nintendo 64 DD.
Believe it or not, in the N64 Virtual Console, our friend, actually, Luigi Blood, he actually found there was bytes of code that could have potentially allowed Nintendo 64 DD emulation within the N64 Wii U Virtual Console, which is really, really interesting, by the way. But he did say that there wasn't a lot of code in there. It was just, it was bare bones, which meant that you couldn't, inject a ROM at all.
It was probably testing. Maybe Nintendo had plans for F-Zero X expansion kit, 'cause that's the only expansion that came out for the DD that worked with a normal game. And I think maybe that would have been an okay thing that they could have done the hype F-Zero, a new F-Zero game, or just, make F-Zero X big for Americans, because they never got to play the expansion.
Right, to me, I think Nintendo has an advantage, because we keep on hearing rumors about Mother 3 coming to the West. A lot of people have been saying that the project's been shelved until, the Switch, and there's just, it's the rumor that keeps on coming back. It's the Pandora's box of Nintendo, essentially. And if Nintendo does manage to do this, this actually opens, this is what excites me. I'm not a Mother fan in general, but what excites me is that they could go back to titles that have never been released here in America and actually have the audacity to translate them if Mother 3 sells well. Which, to me, I think it might if they have heavy marketing, because they could just market it as like a brand new game that has never been before seen. They can market it like Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels.
Well, they did that with Earthbound Beginnings, and to my knowledge, it did sell well, Wesley said it did. But that's my favorite of other games, Earthbound Beginnings, or Earth Space Bound, as I call it. I don't know, it didn't seem to get as much hype as I expected it would, because they advertised it as a long-lost NES game, and a lot of people bought it on day one, but I haven't heard of people fondly saying it's one of the best Wii U eShop games, even though I like it a lot.
Right, I think that maybe that could have been due to the fact that it's... Okay, so when you hear of Mother, you hear a lot of people talk about Mother 3. I just feel like Mother 3 is a game that gets more publicity because you hear a lot of people saying, okay, why isn't this game localized? And that's actually the first time I heard about it, when I heard a lot of people saying, there's this fan trade installation of this game. We're trying to get Nintendo to bring it to the West. Earthbound Beginnings, I think, is a game that not a lot of people heard of because it's not as outcried for as Mother 3. The Mother 3 has an advantage because its popularity is spread through word of mouth.
And Smash Brothers.
True. Lucas was added in Super Smash Bros. Brawl and returned as DLC in Smash 4. So those two characters are heavily well advertised. So you have the advantage of Smash Brothers and word of mouth. Technically speaking, you could have a massive marketing campaign on your hands and you could get it to sell well. To me, Nintendo is sitting on a potential gold mine, not only for Mother fans, but for other people who are wanting to play lost Japanese games.
Yeah, even though I think it's ultra unlikely due to how dark the particular game is, I think I'd love to see a localization of Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War for Super Famicom.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that game, and I actually have a friend who just loves Fire Emblem, so I think she would love it. But I know a lot of people would appreciate that. But we're getting into an interesting time because here's the thing: Nintendo, when they did their Wii Virtual Console, they actually had a policy of keeping it as original as possible. I know that there was a game that was unreleased for the Super Famicom. I can't remember the name of the game, but the developers actually gave the ROM to Nintendo, and Nintendo rejected it because, technically speaking, it's an unreleased game, and that was something that people never heard of. So they didn't post it because, it wasn't actually part of history. Now, if Nintendo is releasing Mother 3, which is a game that, while part of history, never released in America, they could be changing their stance on that.
I think they changed their stance to an extent when Earthbound Beginnings came out, because it said on the top, boot up screen, it was unreleased in the United States. And, well, Factor 5 is dead, but I do remember reading a long time ago, not a long time ago, but it happened a long time ago, that some Turrican game for the Super Famicom or Super NES had a missing level, and in the final retail version they had to cut out the ending of the game. And for the Virtual Console re-release, they actually had a version with the full game that was never released to the public, and they were gonna release it as a free download, the people who bought the unfinished version on the Virtual Console, but Nintendo of America rejected it because it was not the official version. And it was sad. It saddened the developers.
Right. I guess that's why you have, Virtual Console injections, but you didn't hear that from me.
Not to mention, I don't think that the said Super Turrican, I think it was called, I don't think that complete version even was leaked. I think it was going to be this massive Virtual Console event that Factor 5 hoped to build up, and it didn't happen, so they just leave it in the vault.
Pretty much. It's definitely interesting. Could Nintendo... they do seem to be changing their stance, but what would be cool, and this is kind of out there, and I don't even see it happening, but what would be cool is that maybe as a pre-order bonus for some of the Virtual Console, you could actually get a prototype build of some of the games, which, I don't see happening. This is Nintendo we're talking about, but I think that would be a really cool part of history, just playing older versions.
I'd go nuts if they did the beta of Ocarina of Time, because for years, most people in the beta community fantasized over the beta version of the game because of it being in Ganon's Tower and stuff. I'd love to play a prototype of that, because it looked so different back then, and so much had changed, and it was a really cool looking game. Same with Dr. Mario. The prototype is leaked on the internet, but I think that would be a good game to start off if they release prototypes, because that plays the same, but it had a gradual stage of development. It was called Virus, it had a dog, and Mario was a side character, and then it became Dr. Mario.
Right, and maybe for Ocarina of Time we could get Ura Zelda, but that's again far-fetched. But that'd be cool.
Technically, Ura Zelda is Master Quest, and I think Miyamoto stated in the interview that even though people thought it was this whole new game, what Master Quest became on the GameCube was Ura Zelda. They just translated it and touched it up a bit.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people think. Although there's still some people who are kind of skeptical about that and just think the game's a ROM hack. But if you dive deep into the code, there's some interesting findings in there. But it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I do think that Nintendo is opening up with the Virtual Console. I think we're gonna see a lot more this time around. Do you think we're gonna see the return of third-party Virtual Console?
Ooh, well, people on Source Gaming don't know this, but I'm one of the biggest TurboGrafx nuts on the planet, even though I don't own the actual system. I bought pretty much all the TurboGrafx games on the Wii U so far, and out of all third-party systems, I hope and pray for the TurboGrafx, because that game has so many amazing games. East 4, East 3, Legend of Heroes, Bonk, Air Force, wait, no, not Air Force, cut that out. Aero Fighters, that's what I meant to say. And Blazing Lasers. So many good games on that system. It's, in my opinion, better than the NES and Super Nintendo combined because of games like East 3 and 4. So I'd love to see the TurboGrafx return. And it did return on the Wii U and the 3DS, though the 3DS version died because the 3DS Virtual Console was discontinued right when it came out in Japan. So I think the TurboGrafx is the most likely of the old consoles to come back to a Virtual Console if we are getting a Virtual Console the same way as the other systems.
Right. I mean, obviously the best game is Keith Courage and Alpha Zone, but, that's obviously the best game, but I don't know.
Nah, it's China Warrior, Bruce Lee and all that.
Yeah, dude. You gotta go with it, but... No, I just, the TurboGrafx 16, I would actually love to see return, and I think they'll probably be one of the most likely systems to return because Konami owns the license now, and they're being very lenient now. I mean, we're seeing like the Castlevania Netflix series, and we're seeing Super Bomberman R, which is supposedly partially funded by Nintendo.
And Moto Wamu Densetsu, which is that train game Hudson made that Nintendo actually bought the rights to, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. No pun intended, but yeah, I mean that's it's interesting. Konami seems to be like, okay, fine, our ship might be going down, but the least we can do is just give some more IPs to people, and we'll just continue making pachinko machines, and they'll just making games. So we're making money, and it's natural.
But yeah, speaking of Konami, they actually they haven't released any Virtual Console games in Japan for a while now, but they left it all to a company called Messiah. Or what's left of them, I think it's called Extreme. They released Cho and Nikki and Landgreiser on the Wii U Virtual Console, and a lot of other games that they released for the PC Engine. And those are the only Virtual Console games in Japan at the moment, because I guess NCS has lots in the back catalog, and they can't release any Super Nintendo or NES games because they aren't allowed to. Natsume said a while ago that Nintendo shut off distribution for those games, people submitting their games to Nintendo for approval on the service. But to my knowledge, in North America at least, the systems that they are still allowed to put out games for are the Game Boy Advance, the Wii retail downloads, and I think those are the only two left.
No, the thing they should do is just embed an NES ROM in the NES emulator for the GBA and just submit it to Nintendo. It should obviously be fine. I mean, come on. If GBA games still work, I mean, come on.
Imagine how funny and depressing it would be if we got Bomberman, but not the NES version, but the Game Boy Advance port. Classic NES series, Bomberman, only on the Wii U. The depressing part, though, is that Metroid in Metroid Zero Mission looks much better than Metroid NES on the Wii U Virtual Console.
Right, M2 actually had a hand in the GBA emulator, or at least made it. If you look at the RPX file, they actually have their name. It's called M2 Engage or something like that. And basically, to me, it sounds like they basically created the emulator, it's a heck of a lot better than the NES and SNES emulators, and especially the N64 one. Like, that emulator is leaps and bounds in my opinion. It has great video quality. You can have screen smoothing. The input lag seems to be kind of dimmed down just a little bit. It's a really good emulator.
Yeah, the M2 is an amazing developer, and after playing the Psychic Collection, I think that means Nerd's the one who's rumored to be working on it, sadly. Because, to be honest, I thought the DS emulation of the Wii U was horrible.
I actually, to me, I was on the contrary. I thought the games actually looked pretty well, and I was the polar opposite. I can understand. I mean, a lot of people will be displeased. I mean, I was actually a little upset because I couldn't use other controllers, and they didn't have like the right stick using or have like a cursor on the bottom screen.
Exactly. That's my main problem with the DS Virtual Console. I couldn't use the Pro Controller. I love the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, and I use the gamepad because I'm recording the playthrough. I use the Pro Controller for Game Boy Advance games in my free time. They look great on the TV. But for DS games, I can't use the thing even though it has the same buttons as the gamepad. I know it doesn't have a mic, but the PS TV elevated the issue of the touchscreen by making it so you press down on the sticks and cursors would appear and you drag and move stuff. And I know they couldn't get the mic to work, but most DS games didn't use the mic. Though now that I think about it, it may kill the DS coming to the Switch Virtual Console because of the fact that there's no mic on the thing.
That is possible, but to me, I think that would definitely. I think they'll try to attempt at least DS games on the Virtual Console just a little bit, considering it's a very popular system. And if the Switch sells gangbusters, a lot of people are going to be requesting them because, the Nintendo DS is the best-selling portable of all time, and everyone and their grandmother knows what it is. So I think at some point Nintendo's going to have to try it. They're going to have to strip some functionality if they're going to have to get it working, but they've done that in the past. With DS games on the Wii U Virtual Console, you can't do multiplayer or online play, so I think they're going to have to make some compromises. And another thing, too, I forgot to mention, with the online play, they could actually re-enable Nintendo Wi-Fi connection if they add Wii and DS Virtual Console games to the service.
That could be interesting, but they'd have to rework it because I think the coding in those games may specify that I was connecting to the glue servers, and those don't exist, so they'd have to rewrite the code to an extent.
Well, I know a lot of the games that are actually released aren't patched in a certain way where they'll reduce seizure effects and all that, and they're all coded in assembly. Nintendo could just do a similar thing because modders, I think a lot of people have heard of Wi-Fi, which is the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection alternative. They just run a simple patch for the game that just redirects the IP address, and that's all it does.
Yeah, DNS and IP rerouting is the common way to get new servers working on those old games, which I think is admirable. I think they do that for the Dreamcast too, despite that thing being old.
Right, that's why a lot of fan-made servers are still up today, because they just redirect the address of which the signal is going to. So I do think that it will be feasible enough for Nintendo to get DS games working. The only problem that I see happening is the fact that the dual screen is gone, and they'll actually have to do what we suggested about the Wii U Virtual Console, and is add right stick functionality where they have a cursor and stuff like that, or they'll just omit it completely, although that'd be a stupid move. So who knows where this is going to go, but... Though
that being said, Game Boy Advance and DS games, we can't forget Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
True, that is probably a mainstay. I think that'll definitely be added. It's really easy to emulate. There's simplistic games to run.
And they already did it. Well, M2 already made an emulator for the Game Boy. They have... in Psychic Collection, the emulator's basic, but it has the same stuff that the 3DS Virtual Console did, but a bit more. Mm-hmm. It has screen sizes, the Super Game Boy, but it's really just a puke orange, and the green coloring, and guess what? It does not look like crap on the 3DS, even in the pixel perfect mode with the star and select buttons. Mm-hmm. The Game Boy Color green was all blurry and it hurts my eyes, but on the Psychic Collection, it's all dark matrix and it's smooth and it looks gorgeous, even in small mode. Like M2 did a phenomenal job with the screens.
No.
Everything got-
Now, if M2 and Nerd were to collaborate on these virtual consoles, mwah, like that right there would be the definitive emulation experience right there.
Don't forget D4 Enterprise. They made the PC Engine and MSX Virtual Console menus, and the PC Engine Virtual Console menu is very, very detailed. It has custom buttons, custom screens. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff to screen size. It also has save states, even though the translation's bad because they use Google Translate for the menus, I swear. But D4's emulation for the TurboGrafx Virtual Console is phenomenal.
Right. I mean, technically speaking, I do think that it's gonna be mainstay. We'll see. I think the three systems that for sure I think we'll see is Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance mainly.
Switch is a handheld.
Right. And technically speaking, the GBA is more likely, I think, considering that Mother 3 is rumored, but that's just coming out of this is just coming out of, like, information that we possibly have. So, it's natural to assume things based on what we might have, but, yeah, that's just how I feel. Unfortunately, we had to stop there, but you can bet Part 2 will be uploaded as soon as possible. We hope you guys enjoyed this segment, and we will see you in the next one.